Hello. I'd like to tell you about my interview with Meg Roberts, licensed professional counselor here in Boise, Idaho, where I live. Meg graduated from Northwest Nazarene College, a Christian college locally, in 2021, and this is her second career. Before this, she was a landscape architect, and then she was a paramedic, and she's 58 years old. Um, she is in private practice with 9 other counselors that share an office space. And she has a main place she comes from with psychodynamic framework. But she is really heavily influenced by the internal family systems work of Schwartz. And she's working on adding mindfulness and somatic experience into her offerings. So a typical week for Meg, I found this a really valuable part of our conversation. She sees 5 to 7 clients a day, only sees clients in person, no telehealth. She works 3 days a week in her office, and then 1 day she does at home. She does all of her paperwork. She tries to take at least one break somewhere during the day that's just for herself. We talked about this at length. Sometimes that's just eating lunch. But she shares an office with another therapist, but they are in on the days that she's off, so she doesn't ever have any challenges with office time because they work on opposite days. So what she really likes with this schedule is that she gets 3-day weekends. Half her clients, she told me, are long-term clients and half are short-term clients, and that she gets a new client every other week or so. So it was kind of interesting because technically she's full, but she always kind of has one upcoming opening. That's how she sees it, 1 or 2. And currently her self-care includes yoga and cycling on her days off. And then she tries to fit in meditation sometimes during the days when she's in the office. So back to private practice. Idaho, where I live, and I intend to get licensed, has the lowest level of licensure, being able to go into private practice immediately. So you don't have to get additional supervision, unlike some states like Washington and Oregon that I've also looked at getting licensed in, which have kind of restrictive hours, required supervision hours. Usually it takes about 2 years, I think, at a minimum, to get your license to be able to be in private practice on your own. So that's a big advantage for me here in Idaho because that's what I'm hoping to do. She said that new technology makes it easier than she was thinking about going into private practice. She does all of her own billing and she does all of her own scheduling. She takes care of that all herself. She doesn't hire that out to anyone. And she said it goes really well. It's much easier than she thought it would be. And that the only place she's advertising currently is on Psychology Today. It's all word of mouth or Psychology Today. So for my focus, what I'm interested in, private practice, benefits of private practice, all the good qualities of being your own boss. I have been my own boss before, and there are a lot of things that I liked about that. And then we come to maybe all the things that one doesn't like about being their own boss. The hidden costs of private practice. Need to provide your own advertising. Need to know whether or not insurance to take or not to take, and all of the things that you would have to do in order to be able to get insurance. All the different carriers that you would have to work through, including Medicaid, Medicare, things like that. Responsible for your own billing, whether you hire that out or you do it yourself. Responsible for scheduling, whether you hire that out or do that yourself. One of the things I realized when she was talking is that through private practice, you have a pretty small group of colleagues. These are the only people that she is really interacting with on a regular basis, and they're not all in the office at the same time. They don't have weekly meetings, so she's got kind of a small peer group to reflect with, to ask questions of. Some of the other things that would be challenging in private practice are all of the benefits: sick leave, vacation, no retirement matching, no paid training for CEUs. You're going to have to do that all yourself, pay for it all. No supervision through work, which if I were wanting eventually to be licensed also in Washington, I realized that maybe it wouldn't be beneficial for me to go into private practice initially, but maybe work a couple of years where I can get supervision before I go into private practice, because I know that no supervision can be very, very costly if you have to purchase that on your own out in the open market and it's not provided through work. Of course, then with the benefits is insurance, and then anyone who's been in business for themselves before knows that you are responsible for all your own self-employment taxes. So there's a lot there. Being your own boss is wonderful because you can set your own schedule, which I am very much interested in. I think for me, working 4 days a week and having 3 days off is where I would really like to be. I think that's ideal for me at this stage in my life. So, but I'm going to remember all of these things. Of all the issues that Meg and I talked about with being your own boss and being in private practice, her biggest and the thing that has surprised her the most is scheduling. She said that on an average, 2 clients a day cancel appointments within the 24-hour window that they're required to cancel in order to not have to pay. Sorry, 2 clients cancel within that window where they don't have to pay, so she doesn't get any money for that. So her solution is to schedule 6 to 7 clients a day and then seeing 4 to 5 people. So while this may sound like a good solution, I can tell that it's weighing heavily on Meg, and she would like to find a better way to work with this, a better solution that is more respectful to her time individually, because of course clients don't cancel at the end of your day or at the very beginning of the day, and maybe rarely do they even cancel back to back. They cancel 2 hours apart from one another, or one and then a client and then a cancel, so that you really can't do a lot with that time. It leads to always this just knowing that that's going to happen and always having that on your plate. And then the other part of this is that occasionally everybody shows up and that these are her worst physical and mentally challenging days, that it's exhausting and it's very stressful. And then she ends up seeing possibly 3 to 4 clients back to back without much of a break in between anyone. And so that's just her biggest challenge. Meg does love her work, though, like she thought she would. She plans to work as long as she can. She doesn't have ideas of retirement, which I don't have ideas of retirement. My mind is far too busy, and I really enjoy learning and being active and doing things and being of service to people, doing something meaningful. And counseling happens to be a job where you don't age out. I mean, you might if you're something happens to your mental faculties or to you physically, but it tends to be a very welcoming job, steering away from the ageism that happens in many other professions. She enjoys the continued learning. She likes to be challenged. She's financially able to support herself, and it gives her control over her environment to some extent. And she's continuing to learn and continue to grow and figure out how to do her private practice setup better, which makes a lot of sense to me. The future for Meg, keep helping people, more training. Meg would like to do a lot more training. She would like to get certified in internal family systems therapy and some form of somatic experience learning she would like also. We talked about these being somewhat expensive trainings, not going gung-ho and just going to all the trainings you can because you have to take time off. It's expensive, and And it's a lot because the counseling profession is a lot, period. And so you need to balance how you're doing mentally with how much more you're trying to extend yourself and expand yourself, even if it's in the best interest of your clients. Meg also wants to have a more varied self-care. Right now, she's just doing yoga and cycling with some meditation. And she talked to me about how she would just like to be more mindful with a lot of activities, even if it's just short walks, but just being mindful and putting those into her rotation. She wants to step outside her comfort zone, and she wants to enjoy herself. And I can understand all of these things that Meg spoke of. They sound very similar to how I am thinking and feeling, including the internal family systems work and the somatic experience learning. So after the interview, Meg and I really hit it off, and Meg offered to be an ongoing mentor for me during my program. And I tend to be kind of a private person, even though most people wouldn't think that. I'm an introvert. But the thought of having Meg as my mentor really resonated with me. And I'm looking forward to that. We've talked about doing it after the holiday season, after the first of the year. But I think that, well, I know that having Meg as a mentor will benefit me in my future as a therapist. But Meg also talked about getting benefits from it as well. So I think we're going to have some very interesting conversations and dialogues around internal family systems work, the education I'm getting at Naropa, including the mindfulness training, the meditative practice, the somatic introduction to somatic work, body scans, all of the things that I'm learning. Meg is really interested in talking about those as well. So I didn't expect to come away from this project with as much, I would say, introspection into what I want in my practice and how I would like to be working as a therapist, and the kinds of and what that might look like. But this project, it opened my eyes into a lot of details for the profession that you can't really find anywhere else, that I hadn't been able to find anywhere else. So I'm really grateful, and I look forward to continuing to learn about myself and how I can be of service to others. Thank you.